Editor's Take. I'm Sakshi Batra, and with me is Gaurav Chaudhary, is the Deputy Executive Editor of Moneycontrol, and we are going to be discussing in this video about the impact of the corporate tax reduction that Finance Minister Nirmala Sitharaman announced on Friday. Thanks a lot, Gaurav, for joining in. Well, it was a mini budget of sorts when the Finance Minister really announced these tax cuts. This has been a long-standing demand of India Inc. as well, and this is what I really wanted to understand. How will these tax cuts, the sharp reduction in the corporate taxes, will really impact the companies and their earnings per se, because for a fairly long time we haven't seen a pickup in the corporate earnings as well.
So what it does is that it actually changes the profitability dynamic of the Indian corporate community completely. We are assuming here that these rates are here to stay and they'll not creepingly come back, through a creeping rise, will not come back to the current levels again. If we assume that the rates are here to stay and at least for the medium term, then it changes the profitability dynamic. It makes companies, if they have to now break even, they'll break even probably 2 or 3 years in advance than what they were doing in the previous tax structure. It also gives them a lot of cash in hand, in the sense that the tax outgo, which is a major cost expense, actually comes down significantly. Just to put things in perspective, just one number will tell us how big the impact is. There are about 34,000 companies in India which had an effective tax outgo tax rate of about 34%.
Oh, okay.
For them, it comes down by about 9 percentage points to about 25.17%. So that's a sharp fall. And for many companies, likewise, from about 30%, between 29 and 30%, which was their effective tax rate on the current regime, and the existing regime, will now come to about 25%. So that's about a 5 percentage point term. So every company gains, and more so the new companies. The new companies will now have to pay an effective tax rate of 17%.
So much lower than even the effective tax rate of 20%.
So they will be subjected to even lower taxes, and they become extremely competitive. These rates are extremely competitive with many Southeast Asian nations, in fact lower than many Southeast Asian nations. So it's a call to all new investors, all companies, to come and set up new manufacturing units and start manufacturing within 2023, so that they will have to pay lower taxes. So that is something that it's also going to help India attract a lot of investment from say places like China, where companies are trying to relocate because of various reasons. And India now, because of the new tax structure, particularly for new investment companies, India becomes an extremely attractive destination. The key point here is that profitability dynamic changes, margins go up significantly, and also the EPS earnings will also see a major change over the next few years.
Absolutely. And then I want to understand specifically for some of the sectors like FMCG, like auto and light banks. These are the sectors that have been dealing at a whole lot of slowdown and a lot of challenges as well. So what will be the direct impact on these kind of sectors?
So if FMCG, for instance, fast moving consumer goods, since the profitability margins change and it becomes extremely favorable for this class of companies, it is widely expected that they will pass on these higher margins in the form of lower product prices to the consumers. That is expected. For auto companies, it could be a little different, because auto companies may not be in a position to pass on the tax cuts in the form of lower product prices because of various reasons. In any case, many of the auto companies are now offering heavy discounts for many of the products as we get into the festival season buying. So far as banks are concerned, most of the banks, the effective tax rates were extremely high. So far as corporate income tax were concerned, that comes down significantly. So banks are suddenly now will be left with more money to lend. So that makes the pool of lendable resources swell significantly. So when banks are left with more money to lend, and holding cash for any bank is a cost, so they would like to deploy it productively. So one of the most productive ways of deploying is to basically lend. And if they have to lend, and since they have more money to lend now, it will, through a secondary round effect, it will bring down interest costs for borrowers. That is a good thing for borrowers.
Absolutely. But what about the investment part as well? Because we have not been seeing a whole lot of investment cycle pick up in the last 6 months to 1 year. Will this move actually kickstart the investment that we've been waiting for?
Part of the extra cash that the companies left it because their margins improve. Some of them will go into investment, but I don't see an immediate uptick in investment because companies are currently sitting on amount of inventory, and also there is a lot of unused capacity is lying. But
Sure.
as demand picks up
Yeah.
and products start disappearing from shop shelves to households more rapidly than now, companies will have to start using those unused capacity. And at some point in time, over the next 2 quarters or so, I would expect investment activity to really pick up.
Yeah, absolutely. I also wanted to ask you just about taking a cue from what you just said. Demand is a key,
Yes.
component that we are looking at right now. The sentiment right now is quite low. Consumer sentiment
Yes.
is low, and over the past 1 year, we've been seeing sales slash for auto sector and also for consumer durables. Do you think right now we are right ahead of the festival season as well? Will this move also help in kicking up the demand?
Yeah, so that is the assumption that the government is making, and usually what happens is that in this kind of scenarios, there's something called the wealth effect that comes into play. It's a
Okay.
behavioral economic phenomenon. Wealth effect is nothing but when it's a bit of a consumer psychology that goads consumers to end up buying more goods because they feel more suddenly they feel richer. In this case, they'll feel richer because the value of the financial and physical assets probably will start rising, and this growing and this feeling of this growing value of their investment assets as well as financial assets, physical and financial assets, as they start growing, consumers will tend to because of the feeling of richness, they will tend to spend more. The same holds for companies also because of the same phenomenon. They would suddenly feel more. Their balance sheet will feel far more comfortable and favorable because the value of their assets have gone up, even though in fixed terms, both for consumers and corporates, the value remains their fixed investments would have remained the same. And that wealth effect, once it starts playing out at the macro level, it should start boosting demand, and that is how companies will start using unused capacity and eventually start investing more.
Absolutely. Thanks a lot, then, Gaurav, for sharing all that insight there. Well, bold decision by the government on corporate taxes for sure, which is likely to definitely kickstart the investment cycle that we've been waiting for. Also boost sentiments for the slowing economy that we have been seeing. And on the other hand, we'll just have to wait and watch to find out how soon will demand also really pick up for the economy. Thanks a lot for joining us in this edition of Editor's Take, and do stay logged on to moneycontrol.com for more news and updates. Thanks for watching.